Cowboys Nation, this is one of those moments where being a fan of America's team feels like carrying the weight of decades of frustration on your back. You know that sense of déjà vu when it feels like the front office just tripped over itself yet again? That's exactly the storm we're living through right now. And let me tell you, the temperature around this fan base is boiling. We're staring at one of the biggest self-inflicted wounds in recent franchise memory, a move that screams ego, poor timing, and a complete lack of strategy from the Jones family. It didn't need to be this way. Not even close. And yet here we are with Micah Parsons wearing another team's jersey while Jerry and Steven try to convince everyone that this was some kind of calculated plan. Think about the way this whole saga unfolded. The Cowboys didn't maximize their leverage, plain and simple. There was no urgency when there should have been. Even if the front office had doubts about Micah's long-term fit or contract demands, they had an entire spring to gauge the market and pull off a blockbuster that could have brought in a haul of picks. Instead, they dragged their feet, let emotions take over, and ended up making the move right before the regular season kicks off, when trade options are limited and leverage is at its lowest. It's like holding on to an ace in poker, waiting for the perfect hand, then folding right before the dealer flips the card you needed. Brutal, avoidable, and frustrating beyond words. The front office tried to spin it. Stephen Jones mentioned some April timeline, but everyone remembers that this really started in March, and by April they still had opportunities to make something work. They didn't. They stood still, let personal feelings fester, and by the time the hammer dropped, Dallas had backed itself into a corner. And even if the draft picks they brought in turn out to be solid, it won't change the reality that they botched the process. It feels eerily similar to the infamous Luka Doncic trade in the NBA, where Dallas let go of a generational player and spent years watching what could have been. Only this time, it's Micah Parsons, one of the most dominant defensive forces in football, shipped away in what looks like nothing more than a petty, emotional reaction. That's the part that stings the most. This wasn't just about cap space or numbers on a contract. This was about pride. Jerry Jones has always loved the spotlight, always believed that his way is the only way, and in this case, ego drowned out logic. Reports and whispers suggest that negotiations with Micah's camp were tense, both sides feeling slighted. The Jones family believed they had an agreement. The agent wanted to push for more, and suddenly it became a game of who could flex harder. And when that happens in the NFL, nobody wins. Instead of finding middle ground with one of the most impactful players in the league, they slammed the door, staged a trade, and tried to package it as the right decision for the team's future. Please, fans aren't buying it. You can see it all over the reaction from Cowboys Nation. There's anger, disappointment, and more than anything, exhaustion. Fans are tired of watching the same cycle play out, year after year, where ego and stubbornness from the top overshadow smart football moves. The truth is, the Cowboys could have used their $30 million in available cap space to bolster the defensive line months ago if stopping the run was really the priority. Instead, they ignored it, only to scramble at the 11th hour with a move that weakens the pass rush and doesn't actually solve the underlying issue. Elijah Mitchell isn't the savior of this run defense. Having 6 defensive tackles on a roster doesn't make up for the fact that you just shipped out your most dangerous defensive chess piece. And let's not sugarcoat it. Losing Micah Parsons changes everything. The Cowboys' defense, which was poised to be one of the most dominant units in the league, suddenly looks like a committee of role players without a true alpha. Dante Fowler is solid, Sam Williams has upside, and there's intriguing depth across the edge, but nobody in that group is Micah. Nobody demands double teams the way he does. Nobody changes an offensive game plan before the snap the way he does. Without him, this defense shifts from terrifying to pretty good, and in a league where quarterbacks are more dangerous than ever, that downgrade is massive. The timing also couldn't be worse. Week 1 is right around the corner, and the Cowboys are about to face Saquon Barkley and the Giants' ground attack. Imagine the memes, the headlines, the laughter if Dallas gets gashed on the ground in prime time, just days after trading away the guy who anchored their front seven. And it doesn't stop there. Later in September, the Cowboys host Green Bay on Sunday Night Football, and you can already picture Micah lining up against Terrence Steele or Tyler Guyton, racking up sack after sack in a revenge tour. It brings back flashbacks of that legendary Randy Moss Thanksgiving game. Only this time, it's the Cowboys watching their former star torch them in humiliating fashion. So now the question becomes, what is this team, really? Without Micah, are we looking at a defense that grades out as a B unit? Maybe a C? Fans are split, but nobody is handing out in it anymore. And when you don't have that one superstar to mask other flaws, suddenly you start seeing cracks everywhere. Coverage looks thinner. The pass rush feels less intimidating. Opposing offensive coordinators can breathe a little easier. It's not doom and gloom yet, but the ceiling has dropped, and the frustration is real. And let's talk about what this move says about the Cowboys' direction. It's not a win-now move, because trading away an elite pass rusher never helps a contender. But it's not a clear rebuild move either, because Dallas is still holding on to veterans, still talking like they want to compete, still making signings that say we're trying. So what are they? Stuck in that dreaded middle ground, not bad enough to blow it all up, but not bold enough to truly push for a Super Bowl. It's the gray area no team wants to be in, and somehow Dallas managed to steer itself right into it. Fans around the country are questioning their allegiance. Some are even joking, should I be mad at my dad for making me a Cowboys fan? That's how deep this pain runs. For those who grew up with this team, who wore the little plastic helmets as kids, who lined them up every Sunday to cheer for the star, moments like this feel like betrayal. The loyalty doesn't fade, but the joy gets harder and harder to find. You survive the playoff heartbreaks. You live through the questionable draft picks, but when the team willingly parts with a once-in-a-generation defender out of nothing more than pride, that's a gut punch no fan should have to endure. And yet, here we are. Jerry got his headlines. The Netflix documentary keeps his name trending. The press conferences put him back in the center of attention. In his mind, maybe that's a win. But for the players, for the coaches, and especially for the fans, this feels like a disaster class, plain and simple. This wasn't about building for the future. This wasn't about smart team building. This was about control, ego, and a refusal to compromise. And the cost could be another wasted season. Another year where Cowboys fans watched the playoffs slip away while wondering what might have been if Micah Parsons was still on the field wearing the star. Cowboys fans are left sitting in a strange kind of silence right now. A silence that is heavy because it comes with the knowledge that the franchise just altered its future in a way that cannot be undone. Micah Parsons was not only a defensive weapon, he was the identity of this team's attitude. Every snap he played carried an intensity that defined the Dallas defense, a presence that made opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable before the ball was even snapped. Now that identity is gone, stripped away by a decision that feels more like a family feud in the front office than a football move. The more you peel back the layers, the clearer it becomes that this trade wasn't about roster construction or future planning. It was about hurt feelings, bruised egos, and the inability of Jerry and Stephen Jones to step out of their own way. The public line from the Cowboys was that they were addressing the run defense. That's laughable, because if stopping the run was really their priority, they had multiple windows to invest in it months ago. Free agency offered options. The draft gave them opportunities. Even mid-level signings could have helped shore up the interior. Instead, they ignored those chances, did nothing for most of the offseason, and then pulled the trigger on a blockbuster move that weakens the roster in the name of fixing a problem they chose to neglect. It's like ignoring a leaky roof all summer, then deciding to sell the house after the first storm of the fall. It doesn't make sense, and no amount of spin from the front office changes that. What makes the situation sting even more is the timing. A week before the season, when game plans are already set, rosters are finalized, and most franchises aren't in the mood to shuffle key pieces, Dallas essentially mailed away its most disruptive player. If they had made the move in March or April, as so many have pointed out, the return could have been bigger. More teams would have been interested. The market would have been hotter. Instead, by waiting, Dallas limited itself to a handful of potential partners and walked away with a package that looks underwhelming compared to Micah's true value. It's a masterclass in how not to handle a superstar situation. And it's one fans will remember every time they see Parsons wreaking havoc in another uniform. The comparisons to the Luka Doncic trade in basketball keep surfacing because they're so fitting. That deal was supposed to make sense on paper at the time, but in reality, it set the Mavericks back while another franchise enjoyed the rise of a generational star. Cowboys fans now face the same nightmare. Imagine explaining to the next generation that the team willingly traded away Micah Parsons in his prime. Imagine reliving highlights of him destroying offensive lines for another team, knowing he should have been the cornerstone of Dallas defense for the next decade. It's the type of decision that doesn't just hurt for a season, it echoes for years, and it sticks in the history books as one of those moments you wish you could erase. What's most frustrating is how obvious it feels that this was personal. You can almost picture Jerry sitting at that press conference, still calling Micah Michael, a slip that symbolizes just how out of touch he has become with the very players he claims to value. Reports that both sides felt wronged only add fuel to the fire. The Cowboys brass felt they had a handshake deal, the agent wanted to renegotiate, and instead of finding compromise, both sides dug in like children refusing to back down in a playground argument. The end result was a trade born out of stubbornness rather than strategy. It didn't have to end this way, but pride turned molehills into mountains until there was no turning back. The fallout for the defense is enormous. Without Parsons, there is no clear face of the pass rush. The Cowboys still have depth, and names like Dante Fowler, Sam Williams, and Marshawn Nealand bring some excitement, but none of them can replicate what Micah brought. They are bullpen arms, situational pieces, complementary talents. Parsons was the starter, the ace, the player you build the entire defensive game plan around. Without him, Dan Quinn's schemes look less terrifying, and offenses around the league will sleep a little easier. The idea of Micah lining up anywhere across the front, blowing up plays before they developed, is now just a memory. It's not just about the defense, either. Losing a star of that magnitude sends a ripple effect through the entire team. The offense now carries even more pressure. Dak Prescott will feel the weight of every drive, knowing that the defense no longer has that one-man wrecking crew to bail them out. Every third down becomes more critical, every red zone trip more important because the margin for error just shrank dramatically. You don't just lose a player like Parsons, you lose confidence, swagger, and belief. That's why the locker room reaction matters so much. You can bet there are players in that building shaking their heads, wondering why the franchise they suit up for just made life harder for all of them. This decision also forces us to take a hard look at Jerry Jones' legacy. For years, he has been called a showman, a businessman, a larger-than-life personality. But moves like this reveal the flaws in that legacy. The need for attention, the unwillingness to share power, the obsession with being the central. Looking ahead, the questions are endless. How does this defense handle Saquon Barkley in Week 1 without its best run stopper, an edge threat? How do they hold up against Green Bay later in the month when Parsons is on the opposite sideline looking for blood? How many games does this team realistically win now? 7, maybe 8. And most importantly, how do you sell this to the fans? How do you look a diehard Cowboys supporter in the eye and tell them this was for the best when every ounce of common sense says otherwise? The Cowboys have put themselves in the worst possible spot, stuck in mediocrity. Not tanking for a rebuild, not pushing all in for a championship, but floating in the middle, a place where hope dies slowly and frustration builds year after year. This is the danger zone for any franchise, but it's even worse for Dallas because the expectations are always sky high. Cowboys Nation doesn't tolerate mediocrity. They demand greatness. And right now, greatness feels further away than it has in a long time. Fans are left with a bitter taste, questioning not just this move, but the entire philosophy of the organization. Are the Cowboys truly trying to win, or are they more interested in staying relevant, keeping headlines alive, and making sure Jerry stays in the spotlight? Every time a star leaves in questionable fashion, every time a playoff run collapses, that question grows louder. And until Dallas proves otherwise, fans are justified in wondering if the glory days are gone for good. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Whispers have been circulating around the NFL for weeks, and the sports world has finally erupted with one of the most shocking potential moves in recent memory. TRISTAN WIRFS, the towering offensive tackle known for his tenacity and elite blocking ability, is reportedly saying yes to the Dallas Cowboys. While nothing has been officially confirmed, sources close to team insiders suggest that discussions have moved far beyond preliminary talks, hinting at a deal that could reshape not only Dallas' offensive line, but the dynamics of the entire NFC. Fans of the Cowboys have been buzzing with excitement, imagining a scenario in which their team solidifies a critical position with one of the league's most dominant young talents. WIRFS, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and celebrated for his combination of brute strength, technique, and mobility, has already made a name for himself as one of the most reliable linemen in the league. The mere prospect of him joining a franchise with a storied history and a hungry fan base is enough to make analysts speculate about a major shift in power across the conference. Inside sources describe the talks as intense and productive, suggesting that both sides are motivated by a shared vision of immediate success and long-term dominance. Rumors indicate that the Cowboys management is willing to go to great lengths, perhaps reshaping their salary structure to ensure WIRF's arrival, signaling just how serious this potential acquisition is. TRISTAN WIRF's possible departure from Tampa Bay has sparked a wildfire of speculation among NFL pundits, who are now debating the implications for both the Buccaneers and Cowboys. The Buccaneers, accustomed to making strategic moves in free agency and the draft, could face a significant setback if WIRFs were to leave, forcing them to reconsider their offensive line strategy and potentially pivot toward younger, less experienced players. Meanwhile, Cowboys fans have begun to envision a lineup fortified by one of the most physically imposing and technically proficient linemen in modern football. Analysts argue that his presence could dramatically enhance the team's ability to protect the quarterback and establish a dominant running game, which has often been inconsistent in recent seasons. Rumors from unnamed sources suggest that discussions have reached a critical stage, with the Cowboys presenting an offer that is difficult for WIRFs to ignore. The potential acquisition has also ignited speculation about the broader impact on the NFC East, as rivals may now reassess their own rosters and draft strategies to keep pace with Dallas. If WIRF signs, the ripple effect could extend far beyond just the offensive line, influencing coaching decisions, free agent signings, and the balance of power in playoff contention. Sports talk shows, social media feeds, and online fan forums have all exploded with debates, with some calling it a game-changing coup and others warning that the uncertainty itself could destabilize team chemistry if negotiations drag on. Inside the Cowboys headquarters, sources claim that executives and coaching staff are working tirelessly to craft a compelling pitch for TRISTAN WIRFS, aiming to combine financial incentives, long-term contract stability, and a clear vision of his role in the team's future. Observers suggest that the franchise is leveraging its high-profile status, media exposure, and state-of-the-art facilities to entice the standout tackle, presenting a picture of a team on the brink of contention with a superstar offensive line. Rumors also hint that key players within the Cowboys locker room are quietly campaigning for WIRF's arrival, seeing the potential upgrade as a way to ease pressure on their own offensive schemes and reduce the physical toll on existing starters. Meanwhile, the media storm surrounding the negotiations has created a swirl of speculation, with experts analyzing every hint from WIRF's public statements, Instagram posts, and interactions with teammates and coaches. Some insiders even suggest that Tampa Bay may attempt to counter with a trade or an extension, but the allure of joining a franchise with a hungry fan base and a storied reputation might prove irresistible. If the deal materializes, the Cowboys could instantly become one of the most formidable teams in the league, capable of dominating both the line of scrimmage and game outcomes. The mere possibility of TRISTAN WIRFS donning the star on his helmet has set social media alight, with memes, highlight reels, and hypothetical game scenarios circulating at a feverish pace. Analysts are beginning to weigh the potential strategic ramifications of TRISTAN WIRFS joining the Dallas Cowboys, debating how his presence might influence offensive schemes, defensive matchups, and even the drafting strategies of rival teams. By adding a player of WIRFS caliber, the Cowboys could implement a more aggressive and versatile offensive game plan, combining robust pass protection with the ability to open lanes for a dynamic running attack. Sources close to the situation describe conversations as intensely tactical, with both sides examining not only immediate performance metrics, but also long-term potential and durability, signaling that the negotiations are about more than just money. They are about legacy. The mere rumor of his signing has also created a psychological impact on opponents, with NFC East rivals reportedly bracing for a formidable offensive line that could redefine matchups across the division. Social media sentiment reflects a mix of excitement and anxious anticipation, as fans and commentators attempt to project the Cowboys' prospects if WIRFS officially joins the roster. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay's management is facing tough decisions about whether to offer a counter package, trade assets, or pivot toward alternative options in the draft, highlighting how a single player's potential move can cascade across multiple team strategies. Even speculative commentary has intensified, with betting odds. Fantasy foo the Dallas Cowboys could be imminent, with insiders describing the negotiations as progressing faster than anyone anticipated. The potential signing has sparked a wave of excitement, speculation, and strategic recalibration across the league as teams begin to anticipate the domino effect his arrival could trigger. Analysts argue that WIRF's presence could immediately elevate the Cowboys' offensive line to elite status, providing a cornerstone around which the team can build future successes. Social media platforms are flooded with fan reactions, highlight compilations, and heated debates over whether the move would cement Dallas as a Super Bowl contender or create pressure-laden expectations too high for any single player to meet. Meanwhile, pundits are dissecting every possible angle, from contract details to potential positional shifts, evaluating how the addition of WIRFS could affect the performance of quarterbacks, running backs, and fellow linemen. Sources hint that internal Cowboys discussions have involved extensive modeling. Project be on the verge of landing a transformational talent whose impact could resonate throughout the NFL for years to come. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.